Alright, the Great Dark Beyond has been revealed as Hearthstone's newest set, the third time we go to space in Hearthstone's history, centered around the Draenei and their escape from Argus from the rest of the Eredar people. It is also worth mentioning here that we are going to be doing one card review per week for the set just to see how that does, instead of our big card review at the end of the reveal season. Oh, and one other thing, any cards that have been leaked out, because I know there are a lot of leaks for this set, we will not be talking about. We are only going to be talking about the cards that have been officially revealed so far. A few things to note with the set. Spellburst is back, which is awesome. Draenei are the new minion type for this set as a way to diversify what we can see, and since they're central to this expansion. And finally, because we are traveling through space, we do need some type of starship. So the new keyword is going to be starship, which is essentially allows you to build up a starship, and whenever they die, their effects and stats are added to whatever you're constructing at the given moment, and then you'll be able to use 5 mana to then slam down however big of a starship that you ended up making. Now with the basics understood, let's get into the card reviews, starting with the newest cards first, which are going to be the Warlock cards. Hot off the presses, we have Askara the Dark Star, a 3-cost, 3-attack, 3 HP minion with spell burst. Steal 2 health from a random enemy. Shadow spells don't remove this spell burst. And if we look at all the shadow spells available to Warlock in Standard Hearthstone right now, the mass majority of these are actually really low cost, making this card quite potent. You could even be argued to maybe try to run Drink Server as a way to get access to the Priest Drink spell, as a way to have 3 additional triggers of Cure's spell burst just as a combo enabler. This is actually probably going to be one of the more fun cards to use in Warlock, at least day 1. I'm very curious if someone will find a way to break this card in Standard. However, I do think has potential to be quite broken in Wild. Actually, in Standard, you could actually use this with reverbs to get additional copies of this, and thus up to 6 health from your opponent per individual shadow spell that you cast on that turn, though you do then have to find a way to discount all your other cheap shadow spells. Alright, let's get on to the other Warlock card that perfectly supports Kara. This is going to be Abduction Ray, a 2-cost shadow spell. Get a random demon. Reduce its cost by 2. Repeatable this turn. Great for both a big demon Warlock list and for a Kara deck. Honestly, this is going to be one of those cards that I could easily see playable if there is some type of like OTK list. You again have to find a way to consistently lower the mana of this card by 1 or 2 to make that deck fully functional, but I do think there's a lot of potential for this to be there. One of the packages that Warlock is going to have access to is going to be the Starship package for it. First one is going to be Felfire Thrusters, a 3-cost, 2-attack, 3 HP Starship piece. Spellburst, deal this minion's attack to 2 random enemy minions. And then we also have Heart of the Legion, which is a 2-cost, 3-attack, 2 HP minion with lifesteal Starship piece, making it where your Starship is going to actually be a pretty big kill if you do combo them out together with each other. It is worth mentioning that I'm pretty sure whenever you do trigger your Starship build, it will actually trigger whatever battle cries on the individual pieces that you have. I will say this, given some of the cards for starships for each individual class, the idea for this is really cool, but a lot of the pieces themselves are individually really boring, especially for Warlock here, because both of these cards don't really do too much that you already don't see in other starship pieces, similar to the ones that we'll be going over for Hunter that has a death rattle very closely resembling the other one that we just went over. However, I will say the support cards for Starships and Warlock are a little bit more interesting, which is going to be Bad Omen, a 6-cost spell spell that in 2 turns summon 2 6/6 demons with taunt. If you're building a Starship, build them now, which isn't that bad of a card. It doesn't flood the pool for the next card that we'll be going over, which is going to start the Demon package for Warlock, which is actually pretty cool, and it is a little bit synergistic with some of the other big Demon support that we have seen in Standard currently. Archimonde is a 7 cost, 7 attack, 7 HP demon. Battlecry. Summon every demon you've played this game that didn't start in your deck. This in combination with Kil'jaeden will actually be incredibly strong. We'll be going over Kil'jaeden later on in the video. Overall, I am super excited to try out a Burning Legion Warlock list using Archimonde, Kil'jaeden, and Sargeras as the main focal point of the list, and because there are a bunch of big demons that you can easily generate off of additional cards, this should be a very potent card for you to try out to use. We also do have a huge payoff for AoE, which is going to be Black Hole, which destroys all minions except for demon. This is going to be basically a power crept version of Twisting Nether. However, it does have the downside of not targeting locations like that card does, but overall probably a pretty decent card as long as there aren't many other classes using a bunch of demons. We also have Forbidding Flame, a 2 cost, 2 attack, 3 HP elemental with the battle cry. Demons that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less this game. Great in combination with something like DC to forcefully make either Archimonde or Kil'jaeden into a 5 cost minion, which could be incredibly fun in that angle. You can also just use it as a way to make sure all your additional demons off of Kil'jaeden cost 2 less, which is pretty good. And if you have ways to bounce this card back to your hand, you could make your demons cost even less. Infernal Stratagem, a 3 cost fail spell that gives a minion +3/+3. If it's a demon, your next one costs 2 less. Another good mana cheating card for those big demon decks. Though it is worth mentioning that we don't have too many like early game token generating demon cards currently in Standard, but I still think this card could see some play depending on what else we see in this set and the mini set. Demons are always going to be at home in Warlock, and I don't know where this one really fits in, but Hearthstone is a 0 cost tradable spell with the fail tag. Restore all damage your hero has taken this turn. Great for Fatigue Warlock or Insanity Warlock as like one final push, but it is also another great example of a card that we should have had years ago in Hearthstone, but we haven't had so far. Now for Hunter, we're going to start off with the Discover package with Exodar Naielle, a 3 cost, 3 attack, 4 HP Draenei. Battlecry, replace your hero power with tracking. Discover a card from your deck, which is going to be a 1 cost hero power that discovers a card from your deck, similar to tracking itself. This is a very potent hero power, even for Hunter, which historically does like to do as much damage with their hero power as humanly possible. However, currently there are no real cards to increase that damage from each individual hero power usage, making this card a lot more potent as it is a way to have drop power for 1 mana in a class that does historically run out of cards really quickly. And in combination with the new Draenei Scout 1 cost minion that after you discover a card, get a copy of it, you should have a easy way to get additional resources, even if your hand is completely empty, as this will allow you to turn 1 card into 2 cards, which is quite potent, especially given the fact that it can actually discover additional copies of cards that you might want to get additional copies of that you normally can't easily run, such as Strangle Thorn Heart, as a way to get a big board multiple turns in a row. Overall, I do expect this Discover deck to be a really potent one, and I can't wait to try it out. And if those cards don't convince you enough that that deck is going to be potent, Alien Encounters is a 5 cost spell that summons 2/5 beasts with taunt. Costs 1 less for each card you've discovered, which actually on turn 3 can be a 0 cost card depending on how you draw. There is the Scabbard keychain on turn 1 that you can slam down, followed by any 2 cost discoverability color, such as Bird Watching. And then on turn 3, you can slam down another 1 cost card, and then this, and you'll essentially be able to get 2/5s really, really quickly. overall making this card really, really strong. But we should also talk about the other package that Hunter has access to, which is going to be the Starship package. The first one is going to be Biopod that has the death rattle of deal 2 damage equal to this minion's attack to a random enemy star piece. This card is probably quite potent, especially if you have a hand buffing deck, since you can easily double this death rattle through Yelling Yodeler, and also even quadruple the death rattle off of you summoning the big star piece after you assemble it, since Hunter does have a lot of hand buffing cards. We also have an easy way to trigger the card, such as Specimen Claw, which is another star piece that after your opponent plays a minion, attack it, making it very, very easily to essentially charge into whatever minion your opponent plays down. And because it has 6 HP, this is actually a pretty good removal tool. Honestly speaking, I think a Highlander Star Piece Hunter list might be very, very, very powerful, given the fact that we do have the Discover tools and these Star Piece tools. The other Hunter Legendary, we're going to talk about Gorm, the Worldeater, a 3-cost 12/12 beast, dormant for 5 turns. At the end of your turn, destroy the minion to the right of this to awaken it one sooner. This is a little bit better of a Slagmaw. However, I do think both cards suffer from the exact same problem, where this condition isn't really the best in the world. It is worth mentioning with this card, though, there are some eggs in this set and in previous sets that you could easily use as a combination with. So in theory, you could probably awaken this on like turn 5 if you're lucky enough. But overall, I do think this is a bit too slow for the current Hearthstone meta game. And speaking of egg cards in the set, Extraterrestrial Egg is a 2-cost 0 attack 2 HP egg, death rattle, summon a 3/5 beast that attacks the lowest enemy. This is meant to be used in combination with Gorm and is probably good in that list. And since we were talking about Highlander Hunter, this is also probably a pretty good card for that list, using Laser Barrage as a way to remove up to 3 minions if you are building a starship, which should be pretty easy to do in Hunter. Now for Priest, we're going to start with the Draenei package, starting with Askara, which summons a copy of the next Draenei that you play, which is actually perfect in combination with Shield of Araska, which is a 6-cost taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal Draenei, thus allowing you to essentially get 2 bodies for the price of 1. Actually showcasing essentially the game plan of Draenei as a whole, where you're trying to get a perfect curve, where you're trying to summon a Draenei each individual turn until you run out of Draenei. I also think this card will be probably pretty decent in combination with Velen. We do have Overzealous Healer as a way to have a 1-cost Draenei in the list, which has the Death Rattle, restore 6 health to the enemy hero, Spell Burst, silence this minion, which should be pretty easily given some of the other priest cards that we will be seeing. And then we also have Anchorite, which is a anti-synergistic card with overhealed cards. However, in theory, it could keep our other legendary alive, which is going to be Cure the Light Beyond, Spell Burst, summon a random 3-cost minion. Holy spells don't remove this spell burst. Given the holy spells, such as Orbital Halo, which gives a minion +2 and +1 Divine Shield, costs 0 if you played an adjacent card this turn. You could easily combo these 2 out on turn 3, making it very easy to keep this minion alive. We also have Divine Star as a way to remove a minion from our opponent's board while also buffing up a minion in our hand. And then Lightspeed as the perfect enabler for Cure, where it gives a minion +1, +2, and Rush, which is repeatable this turn, thus allowing you to turn any minion that you get off of Cure into a Rush minion. The other weird cards that we have is Toka, which is something that actually doesn't exist in Warcraft lore. It does fill in some gaps between Argus and Draenor, which is kind of cool. And outside of memes where you're going to be able to constantly reset yourself to 42 HP if your opponent gets you low enough, I don't think this card is going to see too much play, though it could make for some fun replays. Gravity Lapse is just a 0-cost spell that is decent enough. It doesn't have the Holy School, which makes it anti-synergistic with Cure, but you could in theory use this as a removal tool. The first one we really have to talk about is the Ceaseless Expanse, a 100 cost 15 attack, 15 HP minion that costs 1 less for each card drawn, played, or destroyed. Battlecry, destroy all other minions. Now, I have a real fun meme that I really want to try out, which is going to be with Black Rock and Roll, where you get 115 for 0 mana. But outside of those memes, I don't know how playable this card is going to be in Standard. However, in Wild, it does give Holy Wrath a big upgrade, since it increases your maximum damage from 30 to 100. Let's look at the Starship package, starting with the Exodar, which is a 8 cost, 6 attack, 10 HP minion. Battlecry, if you're building a starship, launch it and choose a protocol. So essentially, easy way to access your starship really quickly, but we also have a protocol where it gives us all the pieces for 1 mana in our hand. We gain armor up to twice the starship's health, or deal damage equal to the starship's attack split among all enemies. Overall, if starships are actually potent enough, I think this card will see play. I'm curious of how starship pieces work in combination with like hand buffing cards as a way to maybe try to get the attack up to absurd heights. I also do realize with this card in particular why we don't have a starship for warrior, just because this could be a little bit annoying as a win condition in Highlander Warrior. One of the neutral cards for starship pieces, though, is going to be a taunt. Death Rattle, gain 6 armor, and it's going to be for a cost. Probably playable enough, but I don't know how good it's going to be in any class that you don't have a big starship payoff. And then we also have a star piece that gives it Divine Shield, which again is decent enough. It just depends on if it works with hand buffs or not. We also do have a really bad removal tool for starships or starship pieces of Star Volpera, which probably won't see any play because it can't interact with a non-launch star, which is just a fun little fact. Let's look at the demons next, which is going to be centered around Kil'jaeden as the main big win condition. A 7 cost, 7 attack, 7 HP demon. Battlecry, replace your deck with an endless pool of demons. Each turn they gain additional +2/+2. Perfect in combination with Archimonde, who have already been revealed. Overall, Big Demon Warlock is a deck that I have a really big soft spot for. However, this card is a little bit anti-synergistic with Nemsy, though you could in theory slam this into the ETC pool and then use some of the elemental support for demons in Warlock in order to discount him down to 5 mana, making him actually pretty potent overall. Also, it's worth mentioning that your deck will always be at 30 cards when you play this card, thus making Phantom basically a dead card in your hand. And outside of that, this should be really fun to see how people play around with this. Doomadian is also another demon that we've seen in the neutral pool that draws a card from your opponent's deck. If you don't play it this turn, put it back. However, if you use this in combination with Clumsy Steward, you should in theory be able to just burn whatever card you draw off of this. You could in theory make some weird like mill Highlander warrior list, could be interesting to try out. You could also try some type of shuffle list where you're trying to put whatever card you draw off of this back into your deck so it doesn't go to your opponent's deck when it is the end of the turn. It's a card that I really want to play around with. I just don't know how strong it is going to be outside of memes. We do have Relentless Wrathguard as a removal tool for demon decks, where it does 2 damage to an enemy, and if it dies, discover a minion, making it easier to get big demons for additional copies of them, or it allows you to easily have big minions that will be discounted given some of the other Warlock support that we've already seen revealed. Eredar Brute, though, however, is probably going to be the best demon, at least in Priest. In theory, you could use this as a res Priest target if you know your opponent's going to have a wide board, since this will never cost 7 mana. It will always be something lower, and just reviving this could allow you to prevent your opponent from hitting face. Card that I have a little bit of interest in trying out, especially given the fact that it is a neutral card and it should be really fun. But because we're talking about the Eredar, we might as well talk about the new minion type, which is going to be the Draenei, which is a type of Eredar. Starting with their big win condition, which is going to be Velen, leader of the Exiled, a 7 cost, 7 attack, 7 HP Draenei. That triggers the battle cries and death rattles of all other Draenei you've played this game as a death rattle with taunt. You, in theory, could use this in combination with either Yelling Yodeler in DK or Hunter. However, that really depends if either of those classes get additional Draenei's. But honestly speaking, given a lot of the other Draenei cards revealed in this neutral pool, I think any class can run the Draenei cards and probably be pretty well off, even if they don't have that much synergy themselves. And I think this is a decent enough payoff. It just needs the right home, to be honest. Because essentially this is infinite value if you have the right minion. Ace Wayfinder gives the next Draenei and itself 2 random bonus effects, which could be cool if you have a way to buff up your Draenei's. However, mutating lifeform is more interesting in my opinion, just because this is a all minion type that after this survives damage gain a random bonus effect. If this costs a little bit less, then I think this would be quite playable, though there are quite a few ways to discount multiple different tribes at once, which could make this quite potent, especially if you have a way to buff this up or allow it to survive, since it does have a pretty big stat line. Astrobiologist is probably one of the best Draenei's that are in the neutral pool. Discovers a spell at the start of your next turn, making it a pretty good turn 2 play, especially if you can find something on turn 3. Hologram Operator, in theory, could be really good as a 2-cost Draenei. However, it is worth mentioning that you'll probably never want to slam this down on turn 2 because it is basically turn 2 do nothing if you do. But the idea of being able to at least play at least one additional body on a later turn could be potent enough to see play in standard. We also have Stranded Spaceman as a way to buff up the next Draenei that you play, which is a +2 and rush, but it does show a theme of the Draenei's where you're going to want to perfectly play on curve. Trouble Mechanic is probably one of the better 2 costs because it does allow you to draw into additional Draenei, which is pretty decent, especially if you have ways to generate additional ones that allow you to only run a few very key ones in your main deck. Astral Vigilant could be really easily abusable. It isn't a Draenei, but it does allow you to get additional copies of big payoffs. And finally, Starlight Wanderer is a really good 1-drop Draenei as it allows you to buff up whatever 2-cost Draenei that you slam down on the next turn. And just because I want to mention it because it is a Murloc card, Braingill is a 2-cost Murloc that has the Valkyrie give all Murlocs Death Rattle, draw a card. Honestly, this card has a lot of potential for the future. I just don't see a home for it currently in standard. Alright, so those were all the cards that we were going to go over for today. Honestly, let me know down below which class you're most looking forward out of all the cards. So far, I think Warlock is honestly the class that is the most interesting to me, though Hunter is a very close second. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye.